Hey, Szilard, how are you doing?
Hello, Paul. It's really great. It's brilliant, sunny in Finland for the last 5 minutes. Uh, we we are just enjoying the fourth or maybe the fifth winter this year. It's been
Fourth.
snowing last night this much. So, yeah, lovely, perfect. This is what I love in Finland.
Well, I have a visa and a visa. I've got to get my travel card punched for Finland. It's on my to-do list. It sounds like a wonderful place and lots of friendly people, and it sounds like I speak the language. So that's always a plus for me. I always joke about it. I'm a typical American. I have 5 different accents, but I speak only one native language. So I'm glad you smiled at that one. Szilard, I am going to turn it over to you, and we'll have it's about an hour, 55 minutes to do whatever you want, and we also have Q&A at the end. I'll be monitoring some of that QA. Everybody on this, also make sure you can either watch it here or you can watch it on. There's a YouTube link as well that you can watch it from. With that said, Szilard, it is all yours.
Thank you so much, Paul, and thank you for having me here. So I was surprisingly realizing that my color fully fits the Zapotec color as well. That's just a coincidence. So as said, I'm a Hungarian living in Finland for 6 long winters now and counting. Today I wanted to talk about actually a story that I collected in my last 24 years in the testing industry, more like how testing has been developed, how I went through developing testing or how it evolved actually. And based on that, how I've seen it grows in technology, in different things, and capturing that what I see people, testers should know, should learn in DevOps. So actually how testing is evolving on DevOps, but also how shall we evolving ourselves. Before we go into that, I would very quickly give a bit of an introduction of Eficode, the company I'm working for. So we are a leading DevOps company in Europe, experts in cloud, DevOps, agile, and service management, software development as well. And mainly we help customers with transformation into real software-driven organization. This is where I work as well. I'm a DevOps Transformation Lead, focusing on advisory and coaching within the team, especially on quality assurance aspects. We work with the big names, a lot of them, and we are in more and more countries. As you see, we are also in the US and in some of the major European countries. About myself, so I'm a DevOps transformation lead with a really big heart for testing and quality assurance. That is where I started in testing. You mentioned, Paul, manual testers. Yeah, I was kind of one of them from the early ages of 2000, starting with telecommunication systems testing, scripting as well as but running them manually, let's put it that way. No CI/CD, some scripting, some coding, and then moved a lot. So like have been all around in those years. I'm a change agent. I feel myself as one who is pushing for change and helping people on multiple areas. Because of that passion, I'm always also a member of multiple communities. One of the ISTQB, the International Software Testing Qualification Board, that is certifying testers around the world. So I was president of the Hungarian board, then still volunteer and working in there. Well, I'm also collecting things like I'm collecting Lego, but I'm also collecting certificates. So some of my way of learning is actually to get certified in things, and that gives me the knowledge. Then I go back many times to actually teach those things, so that helps me to understand better, especially during those discussions and conversations with different people. If you want to see more content from me, scan this QR code, or later on I will have, I suppose, if I remember correctly, I will have my contacts. All right, so what we will do today, we will go through a bit of few points. First of all, we will start with a survey in Metrimeter. So let's see that how many of you are out there, and let's see how much involvement we will get, interaction on that one. Then I want to do a very quick DevOps refresher, talking about the three ways of DevOps and then how testing fits into that. But then we would go through a more detailed flow of testing aspects and quality-oriented aspects within the DevOps flow. Then I want to show quickly a balanced quality model that we are, or I defined or work with. So based on all this, the presentation, I want to sum it up in actually 1-2 slides, and then a bit of a takeaway. So that's the plan for today. And then let's start with this question: what testing in DevOps means for you now? So please either scan the QR code or go to menti.com and take this code and go with it. I will start my talk. I will go through the DevOps. You will see the QR code and the little code in the corner like this. So please take it. Please answer the survey, and we will come back later after my intro to DevOps. We'll come back of what do you mean is testing in DevOps. So a quick refresher on what is actually DevOps, and maybe and probably everybody is already knowing this. I want to give a bit of my view on this one. But yeah, let's start from the very basics. So the DevOps is a solution for the big wall of confusion, right? We have two organizations. We have the development organization, and then we have the IT organization. The IT organization, whose task is actually to make sure that the systems, the solutions, the services are stable. They are incentivized for stability. On the other hand, development is incentivized for change. Their task is to provide value. Their task is to initiate or understand problems, reflect on problems, reflect on opportunities, and create value, right? Then value is delivered in changes, typically. So if we talk about an agile team, the agile team is expected to have potentially shippable product at the end of every iteration. And when we make it not only potentially shippable, but really shippable, then it means that IT needs to make sure that the systems are changing all and all again. And that actually creates the wall of confusion. There's a big problem between the two. So the very simplistic solution, wow, surprise, is that we bring these two together. Well, surprising. But is this the solution? So if we look into DevOps as a solution, it means that now we pull together Dev and the Ops into the same team, or at least collaborating and working together. Depending on the size, on the scale of the organization. Of course, this could be extremely difficult, or this is something that we need to figure out how it works. But when we talk about DevOps, and when we talk about merging Dev and Ops teams, should we also think about merging them with business? So when we have the DevOps and with the star in the middle, should we think about Dev Biz Ops? Or should we talk about Dev Management Ops? Or should we talk about Dev InfoSec or DevSecOps? Or do we want to talk about Dev Test Ops or Dev QA Ops? Now, what I believe, and this is my feedback, please note, DevOps includes everyone in the organization if we scale DevOps. And if you look it from the value delivery point of view, value flow, value flow acceleration point of view, then everyone needs to be involved from the organization. Every different aspect, every different role who is there to realize an opportunity, to identify which way to go, to break it down to backlog items, and then also on the other side, when it's already deployed, to manage it as a service and even have the customer discussions and the service desk running. So all of them needs to be here. So why I'm saying we don't have these dev, bees, manage, sec, QA, IT, ops type of things. We call everything DevOps. Now, based on the DevOps guideline, the DevOps book, Jim Kim defined the three ways or talks about DevOps through the three ways. Where the first way is the principle of flow, right? The principle of flow of value from left to right, from business to customer, answering an opportunity and making sure that developers can provide a solution quickly to a problem through operations into really the customers and users' hands. Now, if you look into testing in this one, the first way, testing could be seen a bit maybe as a bottleneck of the flow, because we need to do all those testing. We need to do all the quality assurance steps. We want to make sure that before we deploy to production, nothing is broken. So this is extremely important to see that testing can contribute to the flow as well, with lean practices, with testing practices that are supporting this incremental value delivery, the agile practices with very fast cycles, short cycles and fast cycles. Now, if we look into the second way of DevOps, the principle of feedback and amplifying feedback, we can understand that on one hand, it's extremely important to get learning from the end user, from the customer, on how this new value is actually being taken, how is this new value, new piece of functionality is working. But also, not only from the end user, we need feedback, but actually from all the steps of the pipeline, all the steps of the activities that are after each other. So that would mean that we need to give feedback on, for example, the quality of the requirements. We need to give feedback on the quality of unit tests, the actual functionality, how it works, also on how the operational environment is scaled up and how is it running. So amplifying feedback is extremely important. And again, testing and testers are the one who can provide a lot of feedback on here. I would say we are not just providing test case results like pass failed, but we are giving information, and we are giving also feedback on compliancy, feedback on how much we believe and feel that the quality is already in place. So feedback is important. Testing is, and testers, the testing mindset is extremely important to build and provide this feedback. Now, the third way is the principle of continual learning and experimentation. There's a statement that if you can't out experiment and innovate your competitor, then you are doomed, you are sunk. You need not only to learn like what's good and what's wrong, you need to identify what's the next opportunity to go. Now, testing and test thinking could provide a lot of help on this one as well. Quickly get prototypes into the hands of the end users, into the hand of the customers. We can gather feedback on, for example, usability, on user experience, on the quality of the solution. But also, just as a tester, asking the question, what if not? We are already providing feedback, and we are actually opening the eyes of everyone with test first thinking and supporting to understand the possible bottlenecks, the possible risks, but also opportunities. I found that testers are very good to support the service design area as well. We will get back to that. So the three ways of DevOps is important, but testing has a role in all the three ways as well. So all the roles in the three ways, again, amplifying flow, amplifying feedback, and making sure that we have continuous learning and experimentation in place. Now, looking into DevOps, we could say that one of the view, this is from Tricentis, a pretty odd picture, to be honest. They stated into this DevOps Infinity Loop or added testing as a continuous testing part. Now, I mean, this is good, but I believe this is not enough. For me, testing and quality assurance, quality view is much more than just continuous testing here. So looking into another picture from Dan Ashby, and this is like from 2016, you have the links as well there. After a conference, he was like always thinking like, this is a nice picture, all the blue one that was described about dev and ops, but where testing is. And then he also stated that actually we don't need to have a testing step because we test here, we test everywhere. So I could relate to this one much better, and I like this picture much more. Now, before we go on, I wanted also to say that when we talk about testing and quality, we also have the DORA DevOps metrics, right? The DevOps, so Google's DevOps research and assessment teams creating this report every year about DevOps. And actually, the success of DevOps are measured mainly with these four KPIs or metrics, and now there is a fifth one, which is reliability. So if we look, then the first one, lead time for changes, is exactly in line with the flow, with the first way, right? Mean time to recovery. Okay, let me come back. So change failure rate. It's not enough if we are fast, right? If we can very quickly deploy into production, we also need to make sure that those are actually good. So first we speed up and we try to be faster, but then we are also looking how many times we delivered something wrong. So we look into the change failure rate to understand that are we having proper quality assurance, proper safety net within our pipeline, with our way of working, to make sure that we provide high quality code, high quality solutions. Now, in case we don't deliver high quality solutions, the question is how quickly can we recover? How quickly can we have our services up and running again? How can we have mean time to recovery as small, as short as possible? And then, of course, deployment frequency is also important. So not only how long time does it take for a change to arrive to the customer, but how many times, how frequently we are delivering changes. This is like how small increments, for example, we can chunk the problem so we are able to deliver small pieces of value continuously to our end users. So before we go into now more deep into the testing part, let's look into the Menti. And I already see we have a few answers here, not too many, honestly, but we have a few things here. So what is testing in DevOps in your point of view? So it states like value driver. It's very good. Testing could deliver value and support in the value delivery, right? That's what we want. Fast, easy, quick delivery, faster delivery, absolutely. Safety net. I like this statement, safety net, because I see that our testing or the tests what we do or the questions what we ask as tester mindset people, it's a safety net. Precise communication, feedback, commitment, turnaround, irritative. Oh, testing is irritative. I love that one. I would like to hear more, maybe in the message as well. You can just chat me what you mean with that. But if testing is slow, it can be irritative, right? If you need to wait for the testing to happen, that could be annoying, definitely. All right, good. We will come back to this one. I will actually switch to the next one already, but this is no time yet to look into that. So, what is testing in DevOps, and what I believe is testing in DevOps? But when we talk about testing, should we actually talk about quality assurance, or should we talk more about quality assistance? Quality assistance as a concept of helping everybody to have built-in quality mindset, and in every phases of the life cycle of the software, making sure that quality is built in and quality is then preserved, measured, preserved, and in case of there's a quality problem, we can get back quickly to recover the service. So testing in DevOps. Let's look first our development value stream. So if we open up the DevOps infinity loop, what we will get is a flow of different working steps. Now, I love to start with design, where design is service design. Design is design thinking, understanding the customer needs, understanding what they want. Then you plan which problem to solve first, which is the area to go. You plan, you design, you have some kind of breakdown of the problem into smaller areas. Now I just see pause that irritative is not irritative but iterative. Great. Better. So when we talk about the next step, it is like designing and understanding, chunking the problem creation, the solution into smaller pieces. Then we go into coding, building, testing, deploying, releasing, operating, and monitoring. And you see, I stated deploy first and only release, because I believe that we continuously deploy that, but we release only on demand when needed. Now, we also operate in the live environment, right? And for that, we monitor continuously the environment, but also the usage. And we actually monitor to understand if the value that we wanted to deliver was actually delivered. So it's really monitoring on multiple areas. So let's look into this one. If you look into the picture, what do you see? You see that we have actually testing as one step only, right? It's in the middle. And I would really say that this is not enough. So what I wish to see that we shift to the left, but we also shift to the right, but actually we shift even more to the left and even more to the right. So really to the far left, far right. We are not talking about politics. We are talking about testing here. So far left, far right, and making sure that we start quality thinking as soon as possible in the life cycle. But let's go through these areas, because I like to structure the testing activities, the testing needs based on these different stages. So if you look into the testing part, what are the areas that the tester needs to know? What are the areas that are now important in DevOps testing? So first of all, Tricentis was right. Testing moved into continuous testing. We are running our tests more frequently. We expect to have really stable automated tests, non-flaky tests, something that is easy to maintain, easy to run and rerun and rerun and rerun again and again. That is actually built on keyword-driven test automation. We need typically keyword-driven test automation. This seems to be the best way to automate tests, because keyword-driven also gives us opportunity to talk more with the business, that business is understanding test case description by just reading the tests, the executables. So it's not a spaghetti code script which is ununderstandable, not just very tiny steps there, but more like in the business language, in the problem domain of the end users, we are doing automation. We will go a bit deeper into these actually in the next slides. But when I say, for example, we do automation and we need more test automation for continuous testing, test automation also gives us the opportunity to do more exploratory testing or bug hunting. Exploratory testing or in-person testing as ensemble testing and other words we have there. But the idea here is that testers put themselves into a persona, into the end user's shoes, and from that viewpoint, typically manually, learning about the system and designing the next step, what to test next, and going and searching for problems. Now, bug hunting here is not actually just the concept of hunting bug. Bug hunting, in my case, is an event, uh, an event, a bigger exploratory testing event done together by multiple team members, which is actually on one hand a very good educational session, but also on the other hand, very good possibility to pair with testers and business, testers with coders, and also to find bugs. It's like a hackathon event. We have run that in my past a lot, and it was very funny. Now, when we talk about continuous testing, of course, it's not only functional test. It's also continuous non-functional testing. So if we talk about keyword-driven test automation, and especially what testers needs to learn, I would say that it's extremely important, or let's put it that way, I found it very good to learn robot framework because it's an open source tool, because there's a very large community around it. This January, I was on the Robot Framework RoboCon conference here in Helsinki, and they said there are 30,000 people on the Slack of Robot Framework. 30,000 people is really a large community using a test automation framework. And you will find a lot of open source libraries that can help you with solving very many different problems. So if you want to learn test automation, go start maybe with Robot Framework. Now, as I mentioned, exploratory testing and bug hunting is also important, and I see that as always my English, complementing technique on top of specification-based testing. When we talk about specification-based testing, for example, looking into the acceptance criteria, acceptance test, looking into more detailed, maybe written specification, that is like usually the positive scenarios, right? And what we want to add as well on top of that is the negative scenarios, the alternatives, the failure modes, what could go wrong, and check and test for those as well. Exploratory testing and bug hunting is focusing much more on this area, I would say, and this is what I have seen. This is how we used it many times. And the acceptance tests, so specification based test, design based test cases, are more focusing on the positive scenarios. Now, if I look into the non-functional testing as well, so typically we talk about the ilities here, right? Testability, reliability, performance, ility, capacity, ility. But anyway, the idea is that these are like quality characteristics, abstract qualities that is telling you that the software is good. Many times these are connected to feelings, actually. When we talk about continuous non-functional tests in DevOps, I believe our testers need to understand a new ility, and this is observability, that needs to be tested as well. So we use observability to see if our tests are running, but we also need to test the observability features. And we need to test the telemetry features. So all these are important, and you should not forget to make sure that these functionalities are working as well. So now let's move a bit to the left. What type of things we have here? So first of all, this is like the normal shift left, right? CI/CD practices, CI practices, most importantly, continuous integration practices built on unit testing, maybe with TDD, so test-driven development practice, a lot of automated testing. Also, you can and should learn about code analysis, the different lint tools, the different static code analysis tools. And very specifically, because DevOps is so careful, DevSecOps with security, you need to look into static application security testing solutions. So, how to learn CI/CD? One of the techniques we have is actually, I'm showing as well to you the original version of the pipeline game. This is what was developed originally by Emily Betch, and this is really a card game that your teams could use to learn about CI/CD design and how testing is actually part of the design. You see a link as well in the middle, pipelinegame.eficode.com. You can play actually the game online with your teams in a digital format as well. It's good for education. I'm running these sessions on conferences around the world, and I got really good feedback. And then also Emily is running these sessions, and many of my colleagues are running these sessions with educating basic rules of CI/CD, and then giving the teams a very easy to use interactive session with that. The other area or other input which helped me to understand more CI/CD, because I believe every tester has to understand CI/CD practices, is, for example, from the GoCD pages through the blogs and articles they have. Now, looking into the static code analysis area, and seems that I missed to update the title here, sorry for that. But Snook, for example, or SonarQube are also very good tools to make sure that you look into code vulnerabilities, security vulnerabilities, as well as compliancy problems or code guidelines problems when you are not keeping the coding guidelines. So these are also very important tools, and I believe testers should again learn these, because these will help their work as well. They need to work together with the developers in the teams to make sure that these are in place. Now, moving a bit to the right, in DevOps, what are the next steps that are helping on quality? First of all, we need to make sure that we do acceptance testing on standardized staging environment. When I say staging, this is production-like environment. Production-like, where the like is as close to production as possible. Now, if we are in the automotive industry, we go through these hardware in the loops, software in the loop, model in the loop, software in the loop, hardware in the loop stages. Hardware is extremely expensive. It could be very difficult. It could be coming very late in the project itself. So these are areas that you need to be careful with. And when we say production-like environment, spinning up a Docker container or a Kubernetes cluster is easy. But when we talk about testing with hardware, it might not be that easy. Still, we need to try and go and cloudify our resources. Even if it's a hardware, we need to make sure that that hardware is accessible from far away, from remotely. It can be triggered, and tests can be run on it through CI/CD pipeline in a managed and standardized way. When we talk about standardization, it's also like how to make sure that you always know exactly what your test environment is, how does it look like, so how the system and the test looks like, how is it configured. And the best approach for that is really to use the DevOps practices, the on-demand practices. So you spin up the environment when you need it, you make sure your configuration is done by infrastructure as code practices, and then after usage, you just delete it. First of all, not to use cloud resources that you don't need, not to pay for them, and not let the environment pay for it, but also to make sure that you always have a stable, known state of your environment from where you start from. Acceptance testing on standardized staging. So acceptance testing is, again, running those positive scenarios, mainly your acceptance tests, again, that are hopefully already automated in keyword-driven test cases. Now, another point here for reliability, you remember the fifth DORA metric that was not actually on the picture, is reliability, to make sure that our systems are reliable. Now, how can you make sure a system is reliable when you don't own the hardware, you don't own the cloud itself, right? Cloud is not 100% reliable. This is to all the time making sure that you inject different faults and you check through how the system behaves. I will go into that deeper a bit. And also, the other aspect is here, the other aspect here is different deployment strategies. I will get back to that, canary release and dark launch, just in a second. So when we talk about chaos engineering, what does it mean? Chaos engineering is a practice maybe best known from the Netflix Chaos Monkey or the Simian Army, which is a set of actually robots that are causing trouble, right? Little monkeys are running around and they are unplugging virtual resources. Back in my early tester age, we did a lot of this kind of monkey type testing. When we went down, one of our colleagues was running tests and the other one was actually killing processes, physically disconnecting cables from routers, or just switching off the electricity. And we checked how the system behaves. I worked with very highly available systems, 5.9 availability, which means 5 minutes downtime per year. And they had to really, handle these situations. So now the Simian Army, or with VMware, the Mongol, or from Amazon, the AWS fault injection simulator, are actually tools to simulate different infrastructure, Kubernetes, container, Docker, whatever levels, networking levels of problems, noise, network noise, jitter, other type of problems. So it's a really good technique that you run your tests, and under that you create chaos and you measure how the systems work. Now, when we talk about deployment strategies, this is now not testing. However, this is fully quality assurance. In case of a deployment strategy, what we try to do is actually minimizing the impact of a failure if we have a failure. So with, for example, the blue-green deployment strategy, we have our new version of the code on a set of new machines. This could be servers or actually virtual resources. And when all of that is installed, with the help of the load balancer, we just switch the traffic to the new server. If there's a problem, if we have an outage, if any of the users see there's a problem or their service is not maintained, then we can easily switch back to the original version. Typically, after deployment, we wait some time using observability and telemetry, monitoring the systems and understanding if everything is fine. If yes, then we use again now the blue systems to develop or actually deploy the next version. This is actually your staging environment now. So again, like you see, staging and acceptance testing, staging is coming together with the different deployment strategies. How is this helping with quality? As I mentioned, we are reducing not the probability of a failure. Testing is reducing probability of failure. And the blue-green deployment is reducing the impact of a failure. All right. Also, if we talk about canary deployment, which is another one, it's a different. I would say it's type of a blue-green deployment, but here only a few of the end users are actually seeing the new version of the software. So for example, only 1% of our end users are running the new version, seeing the new version. And then we are able to decide if we want to get to 10%, 20%, and slowly we get everyone to the new version. In case of a problem, again, we can just roll back to the previous version. And dark launch is another technique where we actually have both of the system running at the same time, but from the new software, we are just stopping the responses. We measure it, we can measure performance, for example, but we are not letting the end user to see the responses. So this is also very important, I would say. Very important quality technique, practice, the testers should know about, and they should work together with the ops guys now to make sure that these are all in place. Ops. So now we were moving to the left, moving to the right. Let's move to the far left, focusing on customer-centric quality assurance. And as I said, it's important that we understand actually what the customer wants, because maybe our solution is technically super correct, but it is not solving the problem. It's not, validated. So testers should need actually to understand design thinking, and that's what I learned, that it's really great to understand design thinking, understand how the different user personas are identified, what's the empathy map, what do they hear, what do they feel, and then what's the customer journey. So how the end user actually goes through our service, how they are using, how they get to start using the service, is what they do after using the service. For example, when I buy a Lego, it's not starting just by opening the box. There's a lot of services before that, right? That's my customer journey. It's the buying journey as well. And even after that, what do I do? Do I rebuild this little guy here, or do I play more, or do I start collecting? Yes, I did. When we see personas, customer journey maps, and testers understand that, they can, for example, define end-to-end test cases, really these high-level business process test cases based on the customer journey maps. They could also support product owners to do backlog management, backlog refinement, to slice the work into stories through the story mapping technique, utilizing BDD, behavior-driven development, or acceptance test-driven development, to actually define tests to represent the requirements. And also, if you think about the customers, as I said in the beginning, design feedback through prototypes. So for example, a UX prototype with Figma tool, a wireframe where we have already the buttons supporting the customer journey, but no code under it. Those could be also very good techniques to have testing in place and to get feedback on the quality. So these are also areas where I believe testers should go. Now, if we look into the BDD area, like how we get from insight to specification, you see there's a flow here. So from insight, from customer journey, we discover the different problems the customer have. Then we define what's the best problems to be solved, what needs we want to answer. We define user stories for them. And then again, how to solve it, what's the best way to solve it. You go around that, and with your team, with backlog refinement, using, for example, Gherkin scenarios, given when then scenarios, to define acceptance criteria, which are validatable. And I go back to keyword-driven test automation. With the Gherkin in place, with keyword-driven test automation in place, you can immediately combine these and have an executable, validated specification at your hand. This drives your continuous testing, which could be then again run on staging, right? Standardized staging environment. All things connected. But for using these, testers needs to know, for example, the BDD technique, the behavior-driven development, where I can also show a few books, right, from Gáspár Nagy, friend of mine from Hungary, and Seb Rose, writing the first two books of first two BDD books, Discovery and Formulation. They are working on the third one, which is automation. So how to actually translate from the Gherkin scenario into automated scripts. Now let's look into the last part, which is then really shifting right into live, quality assurance in live. So first of all, it's extremely important that we have telemetry and telemetry in place, understanding if anything went wrong. You remember with blue-green, we deploy the new version, but needs to make sure that we are measuring our system's behavior. And in case of a problem, we can roll back or fix quickly and roll forward. This is, I would say, telemetry is the technical measurement of quality. But then we go into observability, which is more like understanding how the end users are using it. If we have proper observability, for example, we could do A/B testing, which is to see that which solution of the same problem, which feature that we developed for the same problem is working actually better. If you want, for example, more users to use a service, like you want them to pay with a new payment method, you can test with A/B testing that which type of screen or which type of anything else is helping them to test, better, to use that solution better. Now, on top of observability, it's also very good to go out to social media and monitor actually how your systems are being used. So, for example, just checking also the App Store or the Google Play on how many stars you got, right? What was the feedback on your application? Many times, and this is what I've seen when Spotify was presenting their quality processes, they have giant screens in their development area that is showing all the negative comments, all the one-star comments on their application, area from area, like physical geographical locations based. So they know immediately if they deployed something wrong or if there's something broken in an area. The last one here is ITSM, so IT service management. You have a service desk. Those people are listening to your end users, and you can utilize a lot of that information to improve your quality. And of course, in case of an incident, also running blameless postmortem to understand the root causes, not to blame somebody, but to understand what went wrong and how you can improve. All these, again, are important knowledge for testers to understand. So if you look into telemetry, I have DataDoc here or Grafana as some of the examples for telemetry, and also on status page, which you can see a fresh picture. I just captured this today, showing that, for example, this intercom messenger had some kind of issue in the last 90 days. You can see real-time data of what went wrong. If you would click on it, it would show immediately even deeper telemetry data. A/B testing, as I mentioned, you can have like different variations of your solution and just checking conversion rate, for example, and deciding which one you keep. So now we went to the left, to the right. We understood all the different areas for testing. But as a tester, you can also support quality and quality as a quality assistant, built-in quality practices and mindset throughout the whole organization. For example, what you need balanced quality goals. You need to understand where to focus more. You need to learn how to create your quality assurance, and here I say continuous quality assurance strategy implemented within and around your pipeline. And you also actually need to support and work with your colleagues to create the internal developer platform, which is supporting a lot your organization with having its effective and efficient way of software development on a highly maintained DevOps platform. If you look into balanced quality goals, you can use, for example, the risk storming game to work with the different stakeholders and ask them that which quality aspects are the most important for them. So giving really a good understanding of quality needs in the whole organization. If you are interested in internal developer platforms, I really suggest you listen to our podcast, the DevOps Sauna, the Sauna from Finland, where my colleagues are talking and discussing a lot about platform engineering, how to start with it and what are the pitfalls, and a lot of other topics on security and others. So with that one, I want to ask you, after going through all these, that did you identify anything new for yourself that you would start learning from tomorrow? Anything in the getting back to Mentimeter? So anything that you would say that based on now this flow and the different aspects of testing in DevOps, you identified something that you would like to learn more? So while you are answering that, let me go into the takeaways already. So when we look into quality transformation in organizations, how do we see that typically? So usually what we have, there is a big focus on detective quality assurance. Detective quality assurance, where the aim is to capture faults, the aim is to find something with using automated tests and best practices, like shared test repositories and reporting standards. Most of the companies are still here. I would say the larger ones. Many times, of course, the cloud native butterflies, the web people are already in the DevOps, but many times larger companies need support to start and going where they want to be, to shift left, to have more proactive quality assurance in place. So to understand what to do when you design, what to do when you code, even when you use AI driven development to avoid human errors. And then also to understand how to go to the right when releasing and when deploying into production. This requires the pipeline in place. This requires the proper flow, which actually requires the, as I name it, 3-pillar balanced quality model to have in place. So if I need to, summarize all my talk in one slide, this would be the one slider. If you want to share or take one slide only, this is the slide I suggest you take. As you see, it starts with the balanced quality goals that all the organization is aligned on that. It utilizes the internal development platform to have a CQA strategy implemented on your CI/CD pipeline, and having all these activities and practices shifting left, proactive quality assurance, and also shifting right, reactive quality assurance in place on top of detective quality assurance. All right. Yes, quick takeaway before we look into the Mentimeter again. So I would say quality assurance definitely has a role in all the 3 ways of DevOps. So it's not something that is not needed anymore in DevOps. However, you need to learn a lot of new technology and the new methodologies, new practices. There's a lot more on the left and there's a lot more onto the right as well. But keep in mind, testing is never, ever boring, especially if you work in a DevOps organization. So with that, let's see if we got any responses here in the Mentimeter. Not really. I'm not happy about that, but that's life. All right, and with that, I think I just forgot to add my thank you slide to the last. I was so occupied with the Mentimeter, but anyway, I'm now happy to have some of the questions from you, if there are any questions. Thank you very much for listening. All.
Szilard, thank you very much. We've got a couple of like 4 minutes. As you said, we didn't have a lot of questions. I was really trying to encourage everyone who's watching to ask questions. I see Stanisha said thank you, very helpful over there. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to go back and talk a little bit about two of the things that you had up there. One was you mentioned the chaos engineering, I think.
Yep.
And in fact, I love that that slide too. You mentioned take a screenshot of that because that is fantastic. I may steal it, but I'll always give credit to whoever who puts it together. So you'll always get your name on that. That is a fantastic one. I've always kind of curious about chaos engineering, fault injection, and stuff like that. Can you tell me, in your experience, what have you've gotten out of that, actually trying to break the system or have the system be a little more flaky on that?
Mm-hmm. So one of the, I would say the most brutal fault was what we captured is when we started moving, and that was quite a few years back, but we started to moving to the cloud with our development, being cloud native. And there was the first rise with containerized telco applications. And someone just logged into the container and started to do some kind of hacking and chaos things there. And you expected that, okay, maybe the container itself dies, maybe then the whole Kubernetes layer will spin it up again and something like that. But actually what happened, we got the Linux panic alarm or whatever. So it actually crashed the underlying operating system, and the whole server got restarted from a container through all the layers. And that was that was a bug hunting event when we testers were together with architects, and they were like scratching their heads like, oh my god, so now let's go back to the drawing table and figure out what thing went wrong. So that was one of my favorite findings there, that when we used bug hunting, exploratory testing, and chaos engineering together.
I don't think I've ever gone deep into trying to intentionally put in bugs into my systems. Mostly, I've always been, as an automation engineer, praying the system is as stable as possible. But it does remind me of one situation I've mentioned on this show before, where I had the engineers tell me that the system does not come up to a ready state, and they asked me to try and automate the system shutting it down and bringing it back up again. And I initially said, well, that's kind of impossible. I can certainly write a script to shut it down, but I don't know how we could get it to come back up again unless we build a robot to hit the power button. But as it turned out, in that situation, and this was my first automation project, we actually had a little robot that would do that exactly. It was a universal power supply, and it had built into it that it could detect if the system was offline. It would actually send a wake on LAN command to our systems and then power it back up. And we actually figured out every 63rd reboot, it would not come up to a ready state. So it was a pretty cool catch and great little thing on our side.
That's not really 5.9 availability.
Yeah, no. Well, it was in the test. It was in the QA lab. But the other half of that, and I do want to get to Gil in just a second here. The other half of that is that they said, well, every 63rd reboot, how often is that going to happen in a lab? And what happened just 4 days later was we installed our lab, and they were training the doctor on how to use the equipment, and he basically flipped the switch on the 63rd reboot, and it didn't come up, and they nearly lost the sale on that. And then I got more credit because, oh, hey, this low-level ticket. Oh, well, actually, it's a showstopper now because it's actually losing us millions of dollars. If you ever get something like that. Yeah. And I tried to convince him, like, hey, why don't you give me 1% of the money I just saved you? I'm like, no, we're not doing that. Here's a coffee and a free meal at the commissary. But thanks a lot for that. But
I always say that incidents are my friend because that helps me to prove that testing worth it.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So everybody, while Szilard was actually talking, I went and looked up all those books that he mentioned, the BDD books, Discovery and Formulation. I recommend you guys take a look at that. That is fantastic. And I am going to basically say thank you very much, Szilard. It was a pleasure. You're really entertaining, and the information is fantastic. We'd love to have you back sometime in the future.
Thank you so much, Paul, for the opportunity, and I hope that I did not give you too much information, so you will have a good sleep still. Maybe
you're fine, and I'm going to go research a little bit more on Eficode. It looks like a fantastic company too. All right,
thank you very much. Have a great
thank you. Cheers.
other meetup as well, and yes, bye.